now for the Shop Report with
Barbershop Jay.
What up, sports fans? Welcome to the Shop Report. I'm Barbershop Jay. I'll be your host for the day. Here's what's happening. Due to time constraints, and of course that the show is being pre-recorded, we unfortunately will not give out the call-in number, right? Because it's pre-recorded. But we do have a surprise for you as my sports colleague, Double J. I'll save it, Double J. I'm going to save it. As he and I discussed, we do have a special treat for you all come Tuesday. Right, Double J? No, you're not there? All righty. Well, let's continue.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just wanted to double check and make sure. Joining me on the show today is, of course, none other than my man to the left, the man from the NYC, a.k.a. Rucker Park, Brother Richard. Brother Rich, what's happening?
Good, my dear sir. Always honored to be on the show.
And, of course, to his right, or his left, depending on which way you're looking at things, the guy from up north, Joey James, a.k.a. Double J. Tell him what you got to say.
That was an incredible set of games yesterday.
Oh, boy. Okay, got you. And then last but not least, joining us on the program, we are all glad that he's here. Matter of fact, let's give him a special round of applause. None other than D. Gully. D, what's the deal?
Hey, how you guys doing? Great to be with you guys today. Got a lot to discuss, so I'm going to get right to it, man.
Yes, we are. All right, we got a few things on the menu today. We're going to try to keep it all brief because y'all know how we do what we do. When the conversation is flowing, we just get going. Okay, so up first is none other than this whole Paul Pierce versus D. Wade. Now, I don't even know if that's apropos saying versus. Now, I didn't get to see the show. Apparently on The Jump or one of the NBA ESPN shows where they had Michelle Beadle. I said The Jump with Rachel Nichols. But Michelle Beadle and Paul Pierce and somebody else was sitting up there, and they were discussing this. And I don't know how this came about. But anyway, the end result was Paul Pierce's career somehow, in his mind, was better than D. Wade's. So, Gully, I'll start with you. Do you agree, yes or no?
Absolutely not. I think I, along with a great contingent of NBA fans, rather dedicated or passive or what have you, can see clearly D. Wade had a better career overall. Not to say that Paul Pierce's career was somehow overrated, but clearly when you look at it, man, you know when you're seeing a Toyota Camry versus a Lexus. That's the difference we're talking about here.
All right, well, I can't disagree. Brother Richard, what about you?
Well, I don't know that it's that distinguishable, to be honest with you, in my eyes. And here's why.
Oh, wow.
Here's why. Here's why. If you ask me who's the better player, of course D. Wade is the better player. But here's what I'm telling you. I'm looking at this from Paul Pierce's vantage point. He played for the Boston Celtics. They won titles. He was part of the first quote-unquote super team. And when he had to deliver, he didn't just, I doubted that name at first, but he proved in the playoffs that he was, in fact, the truth. So I don't know that we can just dismiss Paul Pierce out of hand and say Paul Pierce is no rival to these players of that era. I don't know that. I think Paul Pierce was, and I'm not a Paul Pierce fan because he played for the Celtics and I've never been a Celtics fan. So I'm not a Paul Pierce guy. I'm a Kobe guy. I want to be clear on that. But I just don't dismiss it out of hand. Oh, man, ain't no comparison. No, I think D. Wade was a great, great player. But I think D. Wade, his career is a lot of splash and dash, but they didn't deliver when they got LeBron, all those titles that we were supposed to get. D. Wade had one fantastic season when they won that title that I remember, that most people remember. And then, of course, when they hooked up. But likewise, I think that Paul Pierce did some wonderful things in Boston as well.
Well, that's fair. And Double
One
J,
humble man. point of
Double J, before you weigh in, let me add attach what I'm. Let me fish back basically off what brother. Well, let me add to what you're saying, brother Rich, or put mines with it. Before you weigh in, Double J, I hear where you're coming from, bro, Rich, and I don't disagree with you in all actuality. I don't think you can be so quick to dismiss. I like the word choice. So quick to dismiss where Paul Pierce is coming from. But here's what I'll say: in terms of career, I don't know if that's a never ending conversation, if you would. You can go on and on because you can always find something to say. Yeah, him, yeah, versus him. But I will say this about D. Wade that a lot of people don't remember. Even though he did not win a championship that year, in 2004, with Udonis Haslem already there, Lamar Odom, Antoine Walker, who all was on? Can help me out, somebody. Who else was on that 2004 Miami Heat team? Eddie Jones, I believe.
Caron Butler.
Caron Butler. So with a lot of guys, you had already knew who they were. Even in college, I knew who Lamar Odom was. I knew he was a black hole at Rhode Island. But you know what I'm saying? They were so-called, quote-unquote, household names. Maybe not to the tune of a Steph Curry and all them guys now, but you get what I'm saying, right? On the scene, D. Wade, what was he? Because he got drafted, 2003? That 04, that was his second year. If you go back and look at that series against, at the time, what were they, the New Orleans Hornets? You go back and look at that series that they won over the Hornets 4-3, and you'll see it wasn't who it should have been, on why the outcome was the outcome in favor of the Heat, the Walkers or the Joneses or the Lamar Odoms or whatever. It was because of Dwayne Wade. Early in that season, early in that series, those other guys was like, okay, what you gonna take the moment? You gonna take the moment? Like a Kevin Durant when he was at OKC, but that's another story for another day. Who want the moment? Dwayne Wade took the moment. They put the ball in that boy's hands at the end. He is the one constant to why they won that series that year. Now, again, they did, of course, like I said, they didn't win the finals as they did in the year Paul Pierce won or whatnot. But I don't recall hardly. I could recall hardly the performances of any of them other guys that, again, we already knew versus Dwayne Wade, who was just relatively new on the scene. So I don't know about whose career was what and what. Okay, Double J, go ahead. Have you say.
Well, I think in this case, Paul Pierce did a poor job of who he picked to have that battle with.
I do too.
And the reason being is, Paul Pierce's career overall was very, I feel like he feels that he's being dismissed, that he's only being looked at as great for what happened when he had his quote unquote big three.
Okay, hold on. Stop right there. Stop right there. Let me ask you. Do you also think that some of this has something to do with the fact that he didn't get a farewell tour?
It has to do a lot with that, but he made a bigger deal about that farewell tour than I think it should have been. I don't think that there was room. I don't think it was room on a Sunday afternoon broadcast to discuss the scheduling conflict that would have existed between getting your farewell tribute video being played, especially during the time. I believe that was during the time that Isaiah Thomas had been dealt from the Celtics to the Cavs. A lot of it has to do with. I don't think he should have done that. I think there's one thing about, to your point, Jay. There's something about honoring your legacy and making sure your legacy isn't disrespected. But I think it goes a bit too far. And I don't want to take too much more time because I know Double J, you got to give your thoughts, man. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's a good deal. Go ahead, Double J. Finish your thought.
Well, you got to remember too that he didn't finish in Boston. He made the decision to leave.
Yeah.
And how are you going to get a farewell tour in Los Angeles for a different franchise? Albeit you're still playing with the same coach that you had won the title with. But if you look back at his early career when Dwayne Wade was still at Marquette, all you had was in Boston was Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker. And, again, you're no different than the Heat's early years where it really was Haslam and Wade for the most part. And yes, as you guys listed the rest of that roster, most people, unfortunately, in 2019, other than Lamar Odom being known more so for the Kardashians with Khloe than he was for what he did on the court, you would say, well, this was just an individual like a Kevin Love in Minnesota, a few years ago, where good player, bad team. And that's why somebody's got to get all the points. And so, again, ultimately, it was just, I think he bit off more than he could chew with who he was picking on. So there's a little bit of a consent, a little bit of frustration there. And it might be a little bit personal, too, because of, the fact that they both were in the Eastern Conference for so long and did play against one another.
Yeah. Well, I say at the end of the day, I would ask Paul, hey, look, man, you sound like what lightweight bitter to me. How about some
but Jay, man, may I ride in on what Double J just said and say absolutely it is personal, without a doubt, because remember now, here's the issue here you're looking at. Who is Dwayne Wade? Why is he picking Dwayne Wade? Why is it Dwayne Wade? Because Dwayne Wade is LeBron's boy. Paul Pierce came in the LeBron era when LeBron was the man on the scene. LeBron, remember, their whole issue with the whole Rondo and the issue with the Celtics. What is the issue they have with Ray Allen? That he went to Miami to do what? Play with LeBron. Why?
Okay.
Because the whole purpose of that Celtic team was to crush LeBron. Paul Pierce has always been he's always seen LeBron as the person that has held him from being this great superstar that he could have been had LeBron's light not been. He just happened to be like Barkley and all these guys were in Jordan's time, and now all these guys are in LeBron's time. And every time you listen to Paul Pierce, his issue is Paul Pierce does not like LeBron James. Take it from somebody who might know something about that.
And you know what? When you put it like that, then you get no argument from me, because at the end of the day, that's the premise for which we based on. I don't want to play with you. You say if you come over here and say that dude is the best dude when we hit on the court, guess what? That's the dude I want to check first.
That's exactly the kind of player.
That's all that is. You know what I mean?
That's
that's right there, Brother Rich. When you sum it up like that, that's a purist talking. You know what I mean? So you're not gonna get no argument from me on the purist side. I just think it's it's a little bit of something on both sides, man. But at the same time, I would ask Paul, be like, man, you want some French fries to go with that burger? I'm just kidding. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about these Green Bay Packers, or should I say, is there trouble in Titletown, USA? Isn't that what the Packers used to be called, or Wisconsin used to be called? Double J, Titletown, when Lombardi was there.
Right.
Yeah, that's where it started off. So I would ask, in my best Lombardi voice, what the hell's going on out here? What is going on between, well, he's no longer the coach, of course, but this whole ordeal between Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. And I found out that whatever is going on, that, of course, no longer could go on, has been going on since 2005. Did any of you all know that? No?
Not a clue.
Yeah, they said, well, this goes all the way back to the 2005 NFL draft when Rodgers felt that when McCarthy was the offensive coordinator for the 49ers, he felt like he should have been picked at that time. You know what I mean? Rodgers did. He felt like McCarthy had a lot to do with why he wasn't picked to go to the 49ers. He felt like that was McCarthy. He said that he didn't always had a shoulder on his chip. Some guy named Grant, I'm not going to mention it because I'm not giving out free plugs no more if I can help it. But, and then I don't like this kind of stuff either. You know how they do. Some anonymous source said that, Odell Beckham Jr. is disgruntled. He was punching the lockers. But if you're going to say what the guy, who it was that was doing what, put your name on it is my thing. You get what I mean? But Aaron Rodgers was upset that Mike passed on him. He said that, Mike actually verbally said that Alex Smith was a better quarterback at the time. Would you agree with that at the time, though, Brother Rich, that Alex Smith was better than Aaron Rodgers coming out of Cal?
Absolutely not.
Oh, my, emphatically. Okay. What about you, Gully?
Yeah, I think it was a wash. I mean, I think for him to have the opinion that he's a better quarterback, we got to understand people make objective statements when really they mean it subjectively. Maybe Alex Smith was a better quarterback for what they needed to do in San Francisco than Aaron Rodgers was, and for what they wanted to do in San Francisco. Now, as the careers played out, we see that there's a difference. But I think if you're looking at what they needed to do at the time, Alex Smith was the guy that they felt better being able to get that done with. And I don't disagree with that.
What about you, Double J?
Yeah, when you look at it coming out of the Pac-12 versus the Mountain West, statistically, everything was in favor of Alex Smith. He had Urban Meyer as his coach. It was very hard to argue against what Mike McCarthy's point was at that moment in time.
Okay, so then how does that lend itself to Rodgers not being a diva, so to speak, and using words like in reference to Mike McCarthy, buffoon, dumb, excuse my French fries, dumb ascotted type play that was called, things of that nature, Brother Rich? Did all of that garner?
I don't know that
yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't know that it does any of that. I think that gives us a peep into the psyche of who Aaron Rodgers is. And from some of the stuff I was gleaning about what other people have had to say about him is that he's a prototypical prima donna quarterback.
Yeah. There was a quote here from a Sean Wagner McGaugh, McGough, about Aaron Rodgers, but it's about the Green Bay situation in general. But even in the best of times, when confetti should have still been stuck to their clothing, one person who was then close to Aaron Rodgers, that person, of course, not being named, remembers he would regularly call to vent that McCarthy didn't have a clue what he was doing. He'd tell him that McCarthy frequently called the wrong play, that he used the wrong personnel, that they were running plays that worked 1 out of 50 times in practice, that McCarthy was a buffoon he was constantly bailing out. Mike has a low football IQ, of course, speaking about Mike McCarthy, and they used to always bother Aaron. This source, again not named, says. He'd say Mike has one of the lowest IQs, if not the lowest IQ of any coach he's ever had. Now, speaking of personal, does that sound really, that's personal, Double J?
Oh, that's a direct shot.
Yeah. Shot across the bow.
Absolutely, that's personal.
Yeah, shot across the bow. Well, I would ask this. Well, not ask, actually. I wanted to mention, whatever side you're picking, whoever you are, whether you're on the side of Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers, the Packers, whoever the case may be, there's a lot of folk who done come out basically and said almost, to a man, if you would, that this whole divaness with Aaron Rodgers may be legit. Greg Jennings, he said he knew his days as a Packer were up when Rodgers made, 49ers jokes, saying there's no one there to hold him accountable. That's what Greg Jennings is saying about Rodgers. There's nobody there to hold him accountable. We've heard that before, I'm sure. Anyway, yeah. Apparently Aaron Rodgers made some joke about Greg Jennings being traded. He said that's when he knew his days was done. So, Brother Rich, now what does that say? Is it McCarthy or is it Rodgers?
I think it's both of them. I think it's something you could tell that there's obviously, listen to the young man's commentary. He said that, in essence, that's one of the dumbest coaches he's ever met. Come on, he doesn't have any respect for that man. And he obviously feels that the man didn't have any respect for him based on, and again, this is a professional quarterback here who is reputed by some people to be. I've heard people say, all of us have heard people refer to this young man as perhaps the greatest thrower of the football and blah, 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 and this and that.
Yeah, he is a talent, that's for sure.
He played, correct.
Yeah.
He plays in Green Bay. This is a person who is rated higher than, come on now, this is a young man who obviously thinks a lot of himself. So for him and his view of his coach, how is that different than what we know in basketball where some people remain nameless might think little of their coaches? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
End of my commentary.
Yeah. Gully, let me ask you, did this Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy thing feud, let's use that word, waste a potential dynasty?
Yeah, it did. It also shows that the problems with Green Bay are are just like the problems in Pittsburgh, and just like the problems where you have quarterbacks who have shown because of their talent and their potential on the field have now been able to dictate, if you will, situations that go on organization wide. You know what I mean? Like you said, I remember Greg Jennings. He was talking about how I think it was a game time situation where after a play was made, Aaron Rodgers had joked with the 49ers that, he'll be available this summer. You should go and get him. And when you have your own quarterback talking that way about you, and his freedom and his carelessness at being able to do that, it kind of shows you like the type of power and clout that he had. So yeah, I can make jokes about my coach. I can tell guys my coach don't know what he's doing. So that way, my talent, what I'm able to do. So that way, when things go bad, you can look at everyone else but me. Okay. And this is exactly what's happened in Pittsburgh. We've overemphasized their talent and what they've done in the game, and we've allowed that attitude to permeate elsewhere in the organization. So now when things fall apart, you're going to blame the coach. But now that the coach out of here and things are still broken, you ain't got nobody else to blame but yourself, because you let your quarterback dictate this environment.
And you know what, Double J, before you weigh in, it's a lot of that going on nowadays in all of these entities or majors. It's a lot of guys, man, who you constantly hearing and seeing on the tube, man, that's got that whole, they throwing rocks, and then when the window get broke, they hide their hands like they ain't do nothing. But anyway, go ahead, Double J. What do you say? Did this ruin a potential dynasty?
I think everybody's brought up, a lot of people have just brought up some great points that this is, dare I say, the LeBron effect. This is what happens in today, 2019, where we used to be able to have that curtain that would separate the fan from the player. And now, because we're able to know everything from what they had for breakfast, this is a culture that in Green Bay that used to be a very in-house, similar to Pittsburgh. And instead, what's going on now is the culture is completely changed due to Rodgers. And this is the result of that.
Brother Rich, this one is for you. That's good stuff too, Double J. I want to get to Jermichael Finley's comments because he was a huge target of Aaron Rodgers, the tight end that played in Green Bay for a while. And he said something similar as Greg Jennings or whatnot, but he said A-Rod wants his. He wants to eat. He cares about his yards, his completions. He said, and that's similar to an addict. You tell an addict to change his ways, he's stuck in. Give a guy more money, you get more diva. Do we need to even have a conversation about that comment? Well, what's already understood?
I think that's exactly. That's self-explanatory. You give a guy more money, he becomes more diva. Why? Because now I got a marketing agent. Now I got somebody that dresses me. Now I got to be up in the morning to shoot a commercial for this person. And the reason I got this contract is because I got so many yards and I'm the all-time leading so-and-so. And I've shot more free throws, I've run more yards, and I've run.
Yeah, I got you. So, Double J, is this whole ordeal and things of this nature, are they destroying the very fabric of the sports that we grew up watching?
Well, keep in mind it's the off season.
Okay, got you.
And so right
Fodder.
now, that's going to keep things entertaining. Give us something to talk about. Again, come August, early September, if things get ugly quickly, that's when that's where we want to pick this conversation up to see how it plays out around then.
Yeah, Brother Rich, similar to what Double J said, you and I have been having that discussion for a while now as far as, right now, things are what they are. It's not enough programming hours. You remember that conversation?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, program-worthy material for all of the program hours that are out here.
Platform.
So they got to fill in the blank until we get to football season. Because like Double J just said, once we get to August, it's going to be the question, are you ready for some football? That's what folks are going to be asking. So at the end of the day, though, Gully, it's going back to you now. And actually, I want all three of you all to weigh in on this part. How much pressure now is on Aaron Rodgers? Okay, if he is absolving himself of any blame as to why the Packer train derailed, he put it all on everybody else. How much pressure is on Aaron Rodgers now?
He's got a LeBron James size amount of expectations. I think the two of them in their respective sports have the most burden of success. For them, especially before he signed that large contract, Aaron Rodgers, he had a tremendous amount of blame because there were already troubles about the organization, murmurs then in terms of his attitude toward the front office and towards the roster on the field and the play call and things like that have only come to surface since Mike McCarthy's been let go. But the idea of it is you have all this money, you've made all these comments, you don't seem to be team oriented so much as you play a team sport, but you recognize your contributions to a team before the team's overall success, something that even Tom Brady doesn't do, where he has just as much right, if not more right to do it. He's got tremendous amount of pressure. Like it's Super Bowl or bust. And any talk of struggles or any struggles with the offense, another injury to Aaron Rodgers, yeah, that's going to be all on him. And really, I might have to step back just a bit to say it's not just on Aaron Rodgers, but it's on that front office that gave him that ridiculous contract.
Well, tell him how you really feel, why don't you? Double J, have your say.
This, again, just to pick up, Gully had some great points, but if they start 0-2 next season, it is going to get ugly very, very quickly there. And this, again, as Gully pointed out, the magnitude of his contract alone, you got a lot of expectations there. You're not going to be able to have some key pieces around you, whether that be on your offensive line or weapons from the receiving corps. So it's all on you. And if they start bad, it is going to get very ugly very quickly. And this could be the demise of Aaron Rodgers this 2019-20 season.
Wow. You really think so? And you said that strongly, too, kind of almost emphatically. My goodness.
Absolutely.
I don't. Do you see him possibly getting traded to another team, maybe? Probably not.
Depending on... Yeah, it's not just that. It's the contract itself. Again, there'd be a ton of cap penalties on Green Bay's side, and then you have only a handful of teams that can even have the room to take on a deal like that.
Got you.
Viva Las Vegas.
Yeah, Diva Las Vegas. That's a good one. Brother Rich, you got the last word
Viva
on that.
Las Vegas.
We got the last word on that before we move on to this next topic.
Well, in French, they would say au contraire. I have to be the contrary voice here. I don't think there's anything he can do over the next 1 or 2 years to disrupt the wave that is. I mean, I think we're forgetting he plays in Green Bay.
Yeah.
That franchise is unlike any other in the country, historically, presently, and Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. We're not talking about Las Vegas or LA or New York or the Jets or Pittsburgh or Detroit. We're talking about in Green Bay. They have already committed well over $200 million, knowing already that they cannot move a quarterback who, if he gets injured again, will be considered an injury-plagued quarterback at this point, who has had major injuries and major surgeries and had to sit out almost a year. So the understanding that when they signed him to such a contract extension is that there is this ride or die. So I think that their fan base will sustain and support him as long as he plays up to quote-unquote Aaron Rodgers standards, and as long as he has someone else that he can perhaps deflect to, perhaps some player, they call that some effect nowadays, some player or some individual you can point to and say, it's that guy or that coach or that, I don't have enough help. Excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm with you, Brother Rich, because Jermichael Finley and Greg Jennings were not the only ones. Marcus Spears, he also had something, he spoke out on this whole Aaron Rodgers deal as well. But at the end of the day, you mentioned them being Green Bay, and, they're not that big market like most of them other teams, so he's kind of larger than life there or whatever. But if they don't win a Super Bowl this year, and then, you mentioned as well, I wanted to touch on this as well. You mentioned injury plague. When I hear that, and when it comes to football, I cringe anyhow. But I'm wondering if.
But Jay, hold on. Before you answer, when you answer, include in your answer how you're going to respond to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their general manager just came out and said, after major players, a superstar running back, superstar wide receiver, players, and then players who played for the franchise, and said, in essence, Ben Roethlisberger is the problem. The general manager comes in and says, hell no, Ben Roethlisberger is the star, and them are the kids.
Well,
explain to me how you're going to. Okay, thank you.
They're going to always make an excuse because it's a quarterback-driven league.
And Green Bay is not going to do that for Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I got you. But you mentioned, though, you said about his injuries, and I just brought up something. Do you think there was a chance, when I mentioned that there were other players who had something not so nice to say about Rodgers, okay, with more than a handful, do you think that a lot of those injuries were a result of maybe some of his wink offensive linemen maybe intentionally missing a block or two? Oh, wow, the silence is deafening. All right. Well, in that case, let us move on. Yeah, got you. All right. Did you all watch any baseball last couple days, in particular this past Wednesday? Seen any highlights or anything? Yeah? Well,
regrettably, I have not, but I'm very interested in this season overall.
Yeah, I am too as well. Indians are balling. Anywho, there was an incident that sort of lends itself to what we've been discussing when we talk about officiating and, that whole Arnold Rothstein thing and whatnot, at least in my estimation. There was a game between the Astros and the Rangers. I believe it was the Rangers. And, yeah, it was in Texas. This past Wednesday. I think it was the Double J, was it the top of the second inning?
Yeah, it was very early.
Yeah, it was early in the game. Well, anyway, there was, it was a couple guys in the Astros dugout, who were making noise about a strike call on one of the players. And, of course, the ESPN, but the ESPN baseball people, broke it down or whatever the case may be. And I myself was watching the game, kind of bored, had a few minutes, was watching the game. I didn't get to see, all of whatever portion of it. And I didn't see that particular strike call or missed call or whatever it is. But the one I did see on a guy, man, the ball, it's no way in the world it's not a ball. I don't care if you're sitting in the upper deck. I'm talking about where with the wind blows, you can see the flags flapping in the wind. And you can see that was a ball. The guy called it a strike or whatnot. Well, the umpire in question, apparently, Ron Kulpa, got into it with the Astros manager, A.J. Hinch. After, the Astros bench and the Hinch, and we're going back and forth from the dugout with Kulpa about blown calls, and Hinch comes out, and he goes, how baseball managers do. He goes up to Kulpa, and they kind of, not necessarily nose to nose, but they close enough that, somebody's spit will touch somebody's face type of deal. And, initially I'm thinking Hinch was like, okay, look, it's not that serious, but you can't keep doing that is what he said. You know what I mean? And Kulpa, for whatever reason, he was going ballistic. Then all of a sudden, in their conversation, Kulpa says to Hinch, I can do whatever I want to do. And I got YouTube TV. Love it, by the way, as I mentioned before. I rewind because, I got it where it records in live time or whatever. Am I saying that right? Live time? Gully, Double J? No? Okay. I'm technological.
Real time.
Okay, you could have just said, okay, yeah, right. You could have just let's keep it moving type deal. But anyway, could have just rolled with me on that, right? But anyway, I rewind. I said no, he didn't. And I'm not the greatest of lip readers or whatnot, but I rewinded. I played it back. He did say that. I can do whatever I want to do, and right in that moment, you know what I thought of? Tim Donaghy, the Rothsteins, was the Arizona State player who got caught for point shaving and all of that. All of those moments where we questioned officiating when the Thunder played the Heat in that NBA Finals and Kevin Durant got pushed under the bag but wasn't called. And more recently here, and I'll let Double J say this in a minute after I get to Brother Richard, what many are saying happened in Virginia and Auburn. But Brother Rich, explain to us about gambling and what's happening here. And then Double J, you can follow, of course, with your UVA Auburn. Brother Rich?
Well, there's a whole saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. So you have people who are now, I'm a referee. Anything in a basketball game can be called a foul. Anything in a baseball game can be, anything in a baseball game can be called, anything in a football game can be called a foul, a penalty, a drop the flag on that play. Just depends on what I know, what's going on. And there are many, many studies that have been conducted with the impact of corruption as it relates to gambling around sports. And now that gambling has been legalized, sports betting is legalized in every state now. Expect to see the rise of these kinds of confusing scenarios in sports arenas.
Interesting. Double J?
Well, we're seeing it across, multiple sports now at this point. And, to Brother Rich's point, you're almost, there's more excitement in WWE at this point.
Oh.
And it's less scripted.
Yeah, Gully, that's your favorite. Go ahead, Double J. Finish your thought. I was just saying, Gully loves WWE, but go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, and so, if you look at the Virginia game yesterday, where the referees oftentimes, you would say, in those last few moments, the dying moments of the game, they generally do not want to be the ones who decide the game. Instead, so with that point being said, they decide not to call a critical double dribble. And however, they do decide to call a foul with 0.6 seconds left, albeit, it was a judgment call. But then, of course, you look at this with the umpire saying he'll do basically whatever he pleases. He beats, Mark used to say, it's the beat of his own drum. And then it all kind of revolves around what Donaghy was saying. You can look at that Phoenix game, speaking of the Suns, where there was a phantom double dribble call, or travel rather, and you just are starting to scratch your head because it's too coincidental. And it's becoming too common.
It's becoming too what? Say that again. Sorry.
Becoming too common. We're seeing it almost every week now, that there's something that is just so outlandish that again, is it about the money at this point?
Well, we know that, but it's always going to be about that. The OJ said that, what folks are do for money. But let me ask you this though. Speaking on that, it's being deliberate or deliberately done so that maybe folks will have something to talk about. In order where they're manufacturing conversation by being by doing these outlandish or making these outlandish calls. Because I would ask, what's the whole point of them coming out with this transparency thing a few clicks back? The NBA, that is. What's the whole point?
Jay, can I answer that question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you ever been to Vegas and have you ever seen a magic show?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not real big on
Well, I'm not into magic like that either, but I've seen a magic show on television. The idea of a magic show is to show you I'm right in front of you, and I'm working a trick right in front of your eyes. But the idea is sleight of hand. You can look if you want. Yeah. You don't know what I'm doing. You look from any angle you want. Yeah. You don't know what's going on here. So they'll show you what angle they want to show you. They'll show you, and they'll say, and look at what happened in the NFL recently with this most egregious call. That referee who made that call, that umpire, he didn't get fired. To make a call that terrible, you should be fired on the spot. You should because this is the highest platform in the world, supposedly, in professional sports. This is the NFL, and the biggest stage. You blow a call like that, you're fired because we got too many people in the pipeline. But what happened? He made that call because he understands why he made that call. Then we find out afterwards all the referees were from a certain place and blah, blah, blah. Well, whether it's a quote-unquote conspiracy or a theory or somebody's opinion or somebody's point of view, the fact is, I take us back again to this question. What effect does gambling? And I think those of us who do not gamble don't understand the degree to which gambling is now weighing in and factoring in these games. And I'll take us to this, and I'll close with this. There's a clip right now on YouTube with an interview with John Sally. And he says most directly in the interview that in the 90s, they were being approached by people to shave points in the 90s. And it wasn't, you can gamble on sports in the 90s. What's going on in sports betting today with sports marketing and sports booking all over the world?
Yeah, and it's legal. Yeah, that's a good point, man. That's a very, very good point. But Double J, I want to say this too in regards to I didn't see the very end of the Auburn game, and for me, seeing it recorded and for moments like that is a little bit different than seeing it live. That's just me personally. But I did go back and watch it. I try to set up, like I would say to my son, situations and scenarios. They don't just begin and end with 0.6 seconds left on the clock. Actually, you got to maybe go back a minute or two to see what the chain of events that led up to that. You get what I'm trying to tell you? That's at least how I do it. On the flip side, because I agree with you, that was very questionable. I don't know I would have made that call in that moment. Actually, I don't think I would have. You got to let them play, as they say. But on the flip side, and I tell this to all the young hoopers, those who might be listening, even though we're pre-recording here, you have to, as a defensive player, understand, when we talk about fundamentals ad nauseum, that was a moment that reeked of fundamentals from the Auburn player in a defensive standpoint. Me and my son used to go back and forth about this all the time. It's his instincts. I said, you have to train your instincts on how to close out on shooters. When you run out to a shooter, even if you're late and he's gotten to the spot before you as a defender, you have to understand that your first reaction is to go and sit down, as they say, but be prepared to be on the move and anticipate left or right. These guys, so often, when they close out on these three-point shooters, and again, I'm not saying that these guys still do that leg kick thing. They do. And the refs see it. They just don't call it. Like they didn't call the double dribble because it was a double dribble. But I believe, and here's why I say when you go as a defender, when you catch yourself not in the right spot and you have to chase, and it's your responsibility to chase that guy to the corner or to the top of the key when you know he's going to hit a three. The reason why you run out to sit down is because if you pay attention in the microseconds moments, when the pass first touches a shooter's hands, wherever it's at on the floor, and I used to show this to my son in videos over and over again. For whatever reason, he didn't grasp it. That's fine. That's on you. There's a moment when the shooter catches the ball. When he catches it, he has to catch it either from left to right or he catches it in front of him. But there's a level. We all took geometry. You know about that invisible plane, as they call it, right? Straight across, east and west. There's a plane for which when the ball is caught, at that point, when you're running out to sit down, you put your hand out. Right in the middle of that plane, you sit down. Because the ball has to go from that plane right there up. You don't need to try to contest up. Everybody wants, every defender I've ever seen, not ever, but too many times I've seen in that same situations, because again, when we're talking about basketball, and I know we're not really talking about Ron Kulpa and the whole that, but now as always, you know what I'm saying, we seem to turn the car left, so to speak. But when you're talking about, and we are talking about Virginia Auburn, because that was a big deal. A lot of folks still talking about the call, non-call, double dribble, so on and so forth. But there's a moment where when you go to close out, too many guys are trying to contest at the top. You cannot contest at the top. If that's where your first initial reaction is to contest, then nine times out of 8, you're done as a defender. You have to go, sit, and then go up when he goes up, so that you all are going up. Just like when a shot blocker meets a guy at the rim, and they say, "Oh, the timing." That's what it really is about, in the nuances and the fundamentals. That Auburn player, don't know who he is, don't even can't remember his number. And I feel for Auburn because they battled. And then if I'm not mistaken, there were some free throws down the stretch that were missed that should have been made. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. You have to understand basketball and any other sport, really, it's about situations. I study situations, and every situation is different. In some situations, you only include the shot clock and the player or the whatever. In other situations, you include the shot clock, the game clock, and the time, and and how many timeouts and all. Every situation is different. This is, to me, what separated all those guys we always talk about, the Kobes and the Jordans and the Birds and all of that. Because let's be real. All of the talk is about athleticism. Bird wasn't quick, but he thought the game 5 steps ahead of everybody else. So he was that much more effective than a lot of guys who were quick. So I would have liked to have seen, with all that being said, I would have liked to have seen the Auburn player run out and not allow his momentum to carry him into what allowed for the ref to even make that call, because there was a moment, it may have been, and I don't understand milliseconds, whatever, 0.00000000001 of a second, where you got to do that. But you have to train your instincts to, when you go to close out, because you can recover, but you have to close out, and you have to sit down first. And he did not do that. That's just the flip side of it. Tough break for Auburn. Yes, Virginia. Brother Richard, I believe you called Virginia, didn't you?
Yeah, I certainly did.
Yeah.
And Monday night, though, finished the problem.
We're going to start keeping a tally, like, how many Double J got, how many Gully got, how many I got. I know I'll probably always be in last. For whatever reason, as much as I claim to know this and that, my predictions are terrible. I might have to take some Advil or something. I don't know. But, tough break for Auburn. Congratulations to Virginia, and, unfortunate for Michigan State. But my goodness, I'm not surprised, in that other one, Texas Tech just, they just, my goodness. But defense, the principles, it's making a comeback. They say history repeats itself, right? Well, guess what? Those types of things, the foundation for which the game was built on, okay, it's making a comeback. It has to. Why? Again, because history repeats itself. Double J, last word on the Virginia, Auburn, and then Gully, last word. Go.
They will lose to Texas Tech.
Some people have said, Gully, what about you?
I'm thinking Virginia's going to, like they say, you got to get there, right? Knowing the heat surrounding the heat surrounding how they arrived, we forgot that a guy with no time left had to make 3 consecutive free throws, any of which would have handed the game over to the team. Those free throws are as clutch as any shot he could have put up. The fact that he was able to do that, 3 of them straight with everything on the line and nothing against you, which is actually the biggest defender actually was against him, and that's himself. I think they're going to finish the job, and I'm going to pick Virginia.
And you know what? Speaking to that point, because I really didn't want to mention that, because people say they get tired of me telling me, y'all talking about free throws, y'all talking about free throws. Well, don't be mad at me, because they keep showing themselves in the outcomes of these games instead of that chick digging long ball 3. But if I'm not mistaken, and I didn't catch this part, I don't know how I missed it, or if it was actually happening, or if somebody just doing some sort of meme or Photoshop or whatever. But Double J, let me ask you: was there a moment where an Auburn player was holding the choke sign when the guy was at the free throw line?
I did catch that, but I initially thought it was just. I wanted to say it was bad timing, but
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, unfortunate. Yeah, and also, were there Auburn fans running in the streets before the outcome was finally decided?
No.
Okay.
To be fair, they ran in the streets when they thought when the play was over. They ran in the streets before they realized that a foul was called. The initial reaction was they saw the shot go up and miss. And so when you saw that and the game was over, that's when the fans took to the streets and celebrated. They had to get everybody back in together to realize that the foul had been called.
Well, I can feel their pain. You know, I'll harken back to
You know who can feel their pain? Everybody that was in San Antonio in 2013 when the O'Brien Trophy was led out to the court. Everybody was preparing for post game, and Ray Allen hit that 3-pointer to send the Game 6 in the overtime.
Got you.
Versus the Heat.
Yeah, got you. I appreciate you stealing my moment. You know what I mean? It's so very disrespectful. Like I was saying, or should I say, meanwhile, back at the ranch, that moment where the Miami Hurricanes, my boys, they making a comeback. I want y'all to know that. In 2002, when they played the Ohio State Muckeyes, the game was over. Had already went down. Well, at the time, I was still, maybe sipping on some stuff, syrup. And I was already on my way. I was on my way back with my drink and stuff. And I see this yellow flag. I mean, everybody had already went home. Arizona was shut down for the night. And here comes this yellow flag. Like the ref in, what's the movie with Martin? Rebound. The ref, the personal foul on. I'm like, dude, you're 55 minutes late. But anyway, I digress. We will get our get back one day from you Ohio State Muckeyes. All right, fellas, as always, that was some good stuff. Good timing, too. And on that note, it's been fun, but we got to run. Appreciate y'all for listening. Don't forget to check us out right here on the Spreaker.com network. Go to the search box and you type in the Shop Report. Or you can go explore on Spreaker and type in the Shop Report. If not, you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, and, of course, via email, the shopreport365@gmail.com. And if that don't work, Google it. For my guest, NYC, a.k.a. Rucker Park, Brother Rich, my man up north, Joey James, a.k.a. Double J, and last but not least, D. Gully. And all those who follow us on social media, we say thank you for your support. I'm Barbershop J. You've been listening to the Shop Report. And remember, the next time y'all want to know what's really going on, come to the shop. Walk-ins always welcome. Holla.